the topic is quite broad, so we were discussing how to approach it, and I think what's interesting about the topic is that we will be speaking about languages, about multilingualism, about translation, but also about multidisciplinarity. And the speakers here all work in different disciplines, different genres, as writers, as performers, as translators. So that's really what we're going to be talking about. First of all, I'd like to ask them each about their relationship with languages and the kind of the position they're in as native speakers of large, I should say, hegemonic languages, English, French, and Spanish. And what is their relationship to other languages? How do they, how does a language we speak influence our behavior and our thinking? So, Karen, would you like to start on this?
If I have some sound, I will. Yes, thank you. So my native language is English, so I am the worst culprit in the hegemonic stakes. But I studied modern languages as a student, French and German, and I've learnt a number of other languages along the way, a small amount of Italian and Russian, and most recently Ukrainian, in order to translate some Ukrainian poetry. But I think I can speak most confidently about English and German. And I think I learned German because I realized I was a different person in German. I was freer, I was bolder, I was much more crass. And I think now I translate about 10 different German writers, and each of them, of course, have different languages, and all of them allows your own language to change. Things that seem impossible at first, you broaden the language. The poet Don Patterson has a great image for this. He talks about when he was translating the great Austrian writer Rainer Maria Rilke in 2005, that he translated him, and then after he'd finished, it was as if new waterways were open in his brain, new possibilities of language, but that they stay after you've finished. And so I sort of feel that every language stretches and opens new possibilities. So I think I'm very excited by that possibility for my own language, because then, of course, you come back to your own language and it's changed, it's broadened, it's open in new ways.
Thank you. So I'm French. So yes, French is one of the hegemonic languages. What I can say is when I was a child, I was a dreamer and I felt very uncomfortable with my mother tongue. And as I was a dreamer, I was very happy with the songs of the birds. And actually, that's why I started reading poetry, because poetry was a kind of new language. And when I was 13, I started learning Russian. And for me, it was like opening a gate of love to languages, because it was a different alphabet and it was a different way of thinking, a different grammar. So it was a different continent of thinking. And because, you know, in French, we don't move so much the lips and everything, but for Russian, you have to open widely. So it changed you. But because I am a dancer, I'm very focused on the body also, the movement. So it changed your ways of moving. And then, because I wanted to work with deaf people, I learned the French sign language. I was an adult, but I realized I started being more, you know, expressive, because I using the languages. So I'm practicing every day with people. So for me, um, I was a little girl stuck in her dreams because I was not able with my own mother tongue to connect with the people. And little by little, all the language I went through, they also went through me. And my body changed, and my way changed, and my masters in poetry were Russian, because suddenly I allow myself to do things with a language I didn't allow myself to do before, because Russian is a kind of different music. And first time I came in Kerala, it was 9 years ago. So now I'm trying to learn a little bit of Malayalam and a little bit of Hindi also. So I really love, to be lost in a language. I I don't speak well Malayalam or anything, but the difference between the first time I was here, it was like a flow of water on my head. And now, when I'm so happy, when I can feel, oh, this is a word, I know this word, it's like bathing. It's like bathing. It's like I don't speak Malayalam, but I like the way people are doing also. If something is not like they do, like all these kind of things we get from other people. And then when you say we change, we really change. But I feel I'm myself. I'm totally myself. But I can express myself in different ways because I have different way to communicate with other people. And so I'm better, I think, or I'm at ease with myself speaking so many languages.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak about something as beautiful as how we communicate and which type of languages are being part of us. I'm original from Spain. I was born in Madrid. My family is from León. León is the northwest area of Spain. It's an area from the mountains. And there they have a lot of tradition of storytelling, oral tradition of telling stories in the mountains. So the first language is of growing up is storytelling. It's the language of the community telling stories in an oral way. So in the school, in the times I grew up, I am from 1971, we study Greek and Latin, classically Greek and Latin, and I think that was a beautiful way to connect with the past and to learn to understand history, reading, the Greek and the Latin. Then I went to study to the Netherlands, so I learned Dutch. I did Geschiedenis, I did history for a year, and then I have this adventure moving to the US, and was quite an adventure because I last 30 years there. So I just came back to Spain after, being mostly in the States, 1 year in the Netherlands, 1 year in Switzerland, and then also extensive time in Mexico. So over the years, I've been having very interesting experience. I am kind of different when I am speaking in English and when I am speaking in Spanish. I think in English I'm a little bit more sweet. In Spanish, I'm more sharp, more direct, more loud, more open up. Like when you see different cultures, like what I like from my experience, this is my first time here in Kerala, and it's like we are very direct. So I'm Spanish, I direct, I look at the eyes, I say what I think. I think the people I'm knowing here, also are that way, and it's pretty good to be speaking in a direct way, looking at the eyes. In my experience in New England or in New Hampshire, or in Iowa, it's different when you are with different groups. In Iowa, I work a lot with the Latino community. I do a lot of creative literacy project, and the beautiful thing of Spanish, we have different melodies depending the areas, depending your origins. So this is the same language, but has different melodies. That's beautiful because people from Andalusia, they will speak Spanish with a different melody. Also, we have different languages in Spain, Gallego, Catalan, Basque, and also there is other languages who are not recognized as national languages, but are also languages. In León, they have a UNES, or in Asturias, who is close to the region of my parents' hometown, also speak Asturiano. So there is languages from Latin, there is Spanish with different melodies in Spain. There is all the Spanish speaking in different areas, also the natives they have, or indigenous language. So there is this kind of energy of many languages. And there are many languages, but also we have this way of connecting with people with the body languages. Okay, sometimes we don't understand. We go to places we don't know the language, but we know the understanding of each other. We know how people is feeling, what they are trying to communicate to you. So that, I think, that is beautiful. And so that is a little bit of my experience growing up with different languages, and feeling that languages are part of us. But also this kind of emotional way to try to connect with others, because at the end it's emotions who make us, feel and connect and understand.
Well, thank you for responding to this question. In from speaking about your own experience, and I agree with Karen here, because I have been living in Britain, in English-speaking countries, both Britain and Australia, for quite a long time. But I always find that I am more kind of direct and blunt. I'm blunt. I'm not German. I'm Czech. I grew up in Prague, but I can see the difference between myself speaking my own language or other languages I know, and speaking English, where I really have to kind of tone down my bluntness and be more polite and so on. There's a saying which really is not ascribed to anyone in particular. I think there are several thinkers who have kind of explored this idea that languages speak us rather than we speak languages. So this is something that we have now looked at collectively. Also, I like the idea that there is, with languages, there is a huge difference between something and nothing. And this is what Claire said, that she may not speak the Indian languages yet very well, but there's a huge difference between being able to say a few things and how people respond to that. So that's been my experience as well. So, we all fly the flag of multilingualism, and it's very important, and it helps us connect cultures. So that's really what we would like to talk about now. And I'd like to ask Karen, because she's an academic, she's also a writer in her own right, and she is a very well-known translator. So, and it is important, because the English-speaking countries do not translate very much. That's something I hold against them. So anyone who translates into English needs to be thanked and celebrated. So what I'm interested to hear from you is, how do you negotiate these two practices, being a writer and being a translator?
Thank you. Yes. So I'm an academic as well, as you know, so a sort of critical writer, but also then a translator and also a creative writer. You're completely right about Great Britain as a non-translating nation. Only between 2 and 4% of literature in Britain is translated. That's partly because we have such a rich culture of various English languages. So we have literature from India, of course, literature from Australia, literature from America, literature from New Zealand. So there's a very capacious English language culture. But you're completely right that it's very small, especially from European languages. So I think because I'm an academic and I spend my life talking to people, especially wonderful young people, I think of writing as a much more private thing, and where I can kind of tune out a lot of the noise of academia and the critical thinking of academia, the analytical thinking of academia. And that is a kind of relief. I like coming to those times. It's very hard to balance the three things. Translation is somewhere in the middle because that's quite a social practice. And I often translate living authors, not only. I translate Rilke, I translate Celan, I translate Brecht, three great German language authors who are all dead. But often I work with living authors, and I love meeting them and working with them and collaborating with them. One can learn a lot from them. And sometimes, as with Ulrike Almut-Sandig, who is here at the festival, I accompany her work as she's writing. And sometimes, because I've translated something, it changes the original. So it's quite a collaborative practice. We also perform together in collaborative ways. We do work with film and music. And of course, that also changes the practice, working with other people, theatre groups or music groups. So that's all very collaborative. I also work a lot with, I teach creative writing, I teach translation in the university, but also in groups for people who don't speak any other languages, and especially in schools. And so that, again, is a very outgoing practice. And I think that's a kind of cultural mediation which very much fits with this panel. But ultimately, I think one is probably fairly on one's own with language in the end. And that's what excites me. Sometimes I translated an author called Raoul Schrott, who's an Austrian. And when I first translated him, I thought, it was really radical language, and I translated it really radically, and I thought, that doesn't work. I can't stretch my language so much. It's nonsense. And then I left it for 6 months, which is quite a luxury. And then when I came back to it, it all seemed possible. So the language had changed. I was working, in a sense, alone with language. So I think all those things are very different and have different amounts of outward-looking aspects, but I kind of like the way they interconnect with one another.
Claire, I'd like you to talk now about how you combine your practice. You're a dancer, you already referred to that up to a point, but can you talk a bit more about how you connect cultures through your practice of different disciplines, including language, dance, performance, and so on?
So I think Karen was talking about collaborative practice. So for me, even if I write a story, a poem, there is always someone near me. How can I say? I love this poet from Russia, Marina Tsvetaeva, and she used to say, to write a poem, it's already to translate. You write from. So I can talk about two experiences because one is here. I was invited by the Alliance Française of Trivandrum, by Margot, the director of the Alliance Française, to collaborate with a Malayali calligrapher. And it was a carte blanche. So it was, can you bring some poetry in French and find a way that there is a translation and it will be a calligraphy? So I realized that for me, I couldn't bring out just words, but I needed to find a way the language talk about this alliance. It's such a strong word, 45 years. So all this, it was like not finding a nice way to talk about it, but to go straight into what is a relationship, how it can be not only short, but like how it dance. So suddenly I realized, it's just an example from it, but that in Malayalam you say Keralam. And Keralam sounds for me like a word, the end, a word, we have this word in French, âme. Âme means soul. So I talked with him and we started trying to invent words from the sounds. And then when he started writing, you know, finding a way to put the French alphabet, the French writing and the Malayalam writing, it makes senses, you know. There was kind of no logic. It's like a movement. But suddenly, the alliance was alive. It was connected into the movement of the... Because you sing, so this is a movement. And then you write, this is also a movement. So this is a kind of experience I'm happy to go into. Because suddenly this is dance, writing, and the mixing of the languages and the cultures. You know, you are not saying, oh, my culture, this is made of this or made of that. This is immediately like you embrace someone. The other thing is I have just, a book of mine has just been published. It's named A Dancing Cow. So I wrote this book when I was here 5 years ago. No, more than that. 6 years ago, I was making a project with a musician from here, John Anthony, and his band. He was a guitarist, and we were rehearsing every day, and I was living at home with his family, and every day we were speaking in English only, and the music was there. It was a fusion between Carnatic and music, like Western music, like pop music. And I was dancing, and it was like it bring out a story from the childhood, like how dance can help you to go through grief, and when you lost someone you love, or maybe an animal, how you can get through it. And suddenly I realized I couldn't write it in French, because it was not a story I could just put in words. It have been stuck because I couldn't put it in words in French. So I started writing this. It's a little girl talking, and it was in English. It was in English because for me, English, strangely, it's more direct than French. A very direct language. Also because we were playing music. So you know, in songs, you have these short words. So it started like that. And of course, I didn't feel comfortable to write in English, so I asked someone, do you think my English is okay? So he said, it's a 6 years girl, so yeah, it's okay. But then we had a lot of discussions, and I realized that that's what I like, you know, on a stage, even when you write a text. It's not about yourself, it's about you, your ideas, what you think, but you have to collaborate with people and to discuss, and so to put in a paper a little part of the world.
So I guess the same, you know, the same question that you are giving us, like how we navigate our creativity with this kind of multilingual experience. In my case, I wrote my poetry. I started as a poet. I'm still a poet. The poetry belongs to myself expressing emotions. I also write theater, and when you work on theater with actors, they have to learn your test and also experience imagine what is beyond the characters. You work, I did a production in Switzerland, so I did a production, my first play, Love is Fragile. It was a very interesting experience because I work with Swiss origin, Hispanic origin actors, so we're first generation Swiss, but their parents were from Colombia, from Mexico, from Spain. So they had at home the Spanish mother language. Then they were German speakers because of their growing up and were born in Zurich. And that experience was very, very interesting when I did the production, because first we put together the play in Spanish and with their different melodies and the characters. So, and then we did the translation into German of the play. And German language and the German that they use in Switzerland is, this kind of connected German. So it was very, very interesting see the actors when they were developing themselves, my play in German, speaking and acting, was different than when they were expressing themselves in Spanish. So for me, it was an amazing experience to work in both productions, and also the experience when you go to Zurich, St. Gallen, Biel, we were like all the actors, everything in a few cars, and putting the play in different stages. So for me, it was a very, very interesting experience. What I did with my third play, I put the production in Iowa City. And what we want when we did that production was another play, was a futuristic play that happened in an environmentalist play about, things that happen in a treatment plant in a very contaminated world. So there is 5 characters living in the plant and thinking about what happened with Earth and why the Earth is destroyed. In that matter, in Iowa, what I did is I worked with the Latino community. So I put together the play in Spanish for the Latino community because they didn't have plays in Spanish. They didn't have a kind of experience of seeing theater in Spanish. So I worked with some actors and some community members who want to experience acting. So it was a very nice experience of working that play with Latino members and bringing that play to the Latino community to feel culture in their own language, because that is also very important. So in that matter, there was this kind of transformation and connections, changing languages, changing a creative experience, and bringing them culture to theater, to the cultural space, to the social space. Then I have a lot of experience as a fiction writer. I wrote novels, and also I'm a comic scholar. Like I work in academia analyzing comic books, graphic novels. Now I'm adapting one of my novels with a comic artist to a comic book, so I hope soon, in a year or two, that we will have something visual to see. And in my experience working with comic artists, how they communicate through frames, so images, the way they have to synthesize words to make them fit in the space of the frame and the movement and the drawing, is a different language, it's a different way of approaching, it's a different way of representing things. So I've been very fortunate to see, to experience languages, but also the creative language of expressivity. So when you see in a stage, when you see someone live expressing themselves and giving life to characters, or when you see a comic artist understanding the world of images and giving drawings who give a sense. So I come from, Spanish is a very pictorial, imaginary culture, and I also, India is that, and that I think the way we need to represent and we need to see images, and images are telling us stories, is something that fascinates me, makes me feel much alive. It's like how we connect with melodies, how we connect with words, how we connect with images. So in some way, I grow up looking for different forms of expressivity. So it's why I can handle poetry, and I feel really good speaking about myself through poetry, but I also want to listen to what the others feels. And theater and fiction are really excellent places where you can tell the stories of others, listen to characters, create characters, and then also my scholar part of analyzing, comic artists and graphic novels and see how they see, and also working on workshops, creative writing workshops, and try to bring the people talent to a place where they can tell stories themselves, write poetry themselves, create plays. So there is a kind of many experiences at the same time.
One thing about, I've used the word hegemonic about the three languages you speak as your native language, and of course here we are speaking in English, which is probably one of the most hegemonic languages. But it's also a lingua franca, and there are all these discussions about curbing the influence of English, and it is a very influential language. It does have an impact on other languages, huge impact, and it has become the common language of Europe, which is really quite ironic, especially since Britain left the European Union. But it is a lingua franca which is very useful, and I think that this is the important thing about it. But it's also a language that exists in many varieties, and so I suppose this applies to the other languages, to French and Spanish. Could you say maybe quite briefly something about how the language may bring different cultures together, but at the same time how cultures may survive without without language? There is a body of work, for instance, looking at migrant communities where culture in the second, third generation actually survives without the original language. It's a big subject, but maybe you can kind of pick a small part of it and comment on it, and then we'll open it to the floor for questions.
Well, I must say I regret the dominance of English, and in many places there are new cultural initiatives to try and give strength to the smaller minority languages, for example, Welsh, even Cornish, Gaelic, Gaelic, Scots, and I think that the problem with English is it suppresses a kind of wealth of amazing languages. And so I wish I could speak more of them. And even coming here, I notice it's a very, very different English, even though we use the same words. What I would say is that it also shows up the differences. Sometimes when I translate into English for an American publisher, they don't understand what I'm saying, and I have to explain. There was one example. There's a slang word in English, fallen off the back of a lorry. It means something is stolen. And when my American publisher looked at that and said, are we talking about a different story? And they didn't understand at all. So it's also, there's so many Englishes that there is a kind of vibrant difference there. And long live difference, I say.
I was thinking about this question. Culture. I think there is no purity about culture. And I think the French, in France, they tried so much, the government from so many centuries, to make one language, People who tried to speak the language in the region, they were, it was forbidden. So little by little it came back. But in my family, not my grandfather, but one of his brothers spoke very well the language of, I don't know what kind of dialect. And it was nice because I couldn't speak, but I could understand. And it was like be richer. And also when a few years ago I was living and working as a company director, so with theater and dance in an area in the city, and there 60 different communities from all over the world were staying. So at that moment, we decided to create a culture for being together. We didn't decide to do something in French. We decided to do something with dance, because dance everyone can connect, and then we can talk, you know? So I think culture is always a survivance, but it's also very important that it's from the family, it's from what we love, it's from... Oh, I talk a lot about Marina Tsvetaeva, but you see this lady, she came to France after the civil war in Russia in the 20th century. And she wanted so much to speak her own language. All these people from Russia, they wanted so much to create something to survive. And in a way, they succeed, but in a way, they also failed. I think it's important. You know, I used to have I have a family friend here. So little by little, we create our own specific culture. So for me, it's important to be rooted in my culture, but I don't know what is my culture because I am a traveler. And when I am in France, sometimes I miss so much to eat with my hands, because I feel it's really natural, right? So, and when I'm here, sometimes I miss so much some kind of special food I have in my country, but I'm a mix of it. So I think, firstly, for me, culture comes from the word agriculture. So this is the connection with hers. And I'm sorry if I'm doing like, a big step, but in a time where we are talking about transhumanism, or maybe sometimes human will be from Mars, so not from Earth, my culture is from this planet. This connection is from this planet. Means culture, that's true. For me, culture is from rituals. It starts with rituals. You have a tree, we are under these trees, and what we want to say for say, hi, good morning. So we need words, but not only. This is how we connect with our environment.
So it's very interesting, like how when you see what you experience migration, I've been living in different places, connecting with cultures who belong to migratory experiences. Some were economics, some other were political migrations. And I have an interesting anecdote. All over the years I've been in the States working, I connect with the Latino community, and the Latino community in the US is very complex. It's not just one community. America is big. There is many migratory waves, many difficult circumstances. But I have an interesting anecdote that I think can show how complex is culture and how complex culture goes in different ways. One of the things I used to do was to work recruiting, like helping to bring first generation students to the university, DACA kids who were in difficult situations, to bring them to have opportunities, to bring them fellowships in the university. And suddenly I have two experiences on how cultures connect and how in many ways cultures can connect. One of the times in the early years, that in 2010, when I was going to different small towns to do this recruitment, with the Latino community approached me. All ladies, grandmas were running to speak with me in Spanish, because sometimes they were coming from very conflictive communities, migrate to the States, but they never learned English, so they felt very well being able to speak with this lady who was from how they call madre patria, the motherland. So, and me explaining, the possibilities of their grandkids in the university and the fellowships, because I didn't want the kids just drop high school and go to the working space. I want them to have opportunities in the university. And sometimes these students were afraid, like, oh, how I can do the American dream, like it's tough. We come from very poor families. But there was something very interesting about them asking about humanities and reading and all of these things, they were like, ah, you are from Spain, La Roja, La Roja. There was the year that summer when Spain won the World Cup of soccer. So I realized football was a very interesting subject for them. So they felt that soccer was a way to communicate. And I thought, well, if soccer is a way that I can bring them to the humanities, bring them to the university to study, I was like, well, I do cultural studies, so we analyze soccer. I can teach classes about soccer. So for many years, and in different universities, not Iowa, Dartmouth, other places, I've been using soccer as the theme to bring them to read books, read poetry, analyze movies, so giving them this kind of connection. And every time I teach a soccer class, a class about soccer, I get all type of students of all the different cultures to connect, and I make them read hard poetry because there is good poetry, because the beginning of soccer, that is something British that suddenly is embraced by different cultures and appropriate and turns into something else. So we see this evolution of a subject, a cultural subject that connect, and we take it in our own way to teach and to think in different ways. So for me, it was very interesting to teach the Spanish avant-garde in the early 20s and how poets were using this kind of avant-garde sports as a way of them thinking. But other example that is complex, when I moved to the States and I started working in the States, I discovered that it's a conflicted country with a lot of issues of military. The military is very strong there. And what I discovered is there were students who were soldiers who end their shift and went back to the university. And many of them were damaged, because when you are in wars, you come back very damaged. And how do you work with people who has been damaged by violence? So there was something that I use in my classrooms of creative writing with that type of people who had that experience, and it's how literature can heal you, and literature and creativity can give you another opportunity. And as I explained, you know, countries, 20th century, 21st century, certainly countries are the empire. But Spain, 16th century, we were 17th century, we were the empire. And we have a magnificent writer, is Cervantes, Miguel de Cervantes, Don Quixote, the author of Don Quixote. He was a soldier, because in that time, Spain was the empire, and I was sending all their people to the wars. So he ended being a prisoner in our jail. He suffered a lot. He lost the ability of his hand because being in wars. But he came back and he healed himself through literature. So a way you can heal societies is through literature. And sometimes you think you are broken, but you can see others who were in similar circumstances in other different historical times that can be healed and think in a human way through literature. So that's our two different samples of how we've been trying to connect.
Thank you. I missed that bird who was there up there communicating with us. It's gone now. We have time for one or two questions, and as I usually say, questions that do not require a very long answer.
It has been really very interesting to hear you guys telling your experience in different languages. But leaving aside culture, my question is that have you ever experienced any difficulty in transporting emotions, basic human emotions, like love, hatred, sorrow, happiness, into your mother tongue from other studied languages? I think perhaps you may be able to answer that.
I don't think there's anything that's untranslatable. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it has to go a long way away in order to come back. But recently I've been translating a lot of things about mourning, because this is the 80th anniversary of the Allied bombing of Germany, and we're marking it in a number of things. And so I've been translating elegies. And I think poetry, I think every language can feel sorrow and every language can express mourning. So I don't think there's a problem in translating emotion. I think that's a good thing that poetry can do very well. But my colleagues may think differently and may say dance does it better.
When you translate, I think you, as a poet, you have to accept to lose something, so you can get some treasure. You know, it's like we are all different and cultures are different. But yes, the emotion exists in every culture. That the way we connect to them is different. So you will find a way. That's why, you know, sometimes there is a translator, then you will ask another poet, how would you say that? You know, how would you feel that? You have always to ask many people because it's so subtle. So sometimes you have to go for treason, I mean, like a traitor, but to find the treasure of what it means.
In my experience working with my translators, when they work a piece of mine, sometimes they are happy that I'm alive and they can ask me questions like, you know, to explain some verse, to explain some aspect, to give them more feedback so they can find the emotional connection in their own language they are going to translate of what I was trying to express. So that is a very interesting experience when you work with a translator and you are helping to frame what they, you know, how to make the transformation of, because in some way translate is also a way of rewriting. There's a beauty on that process. There is also a creative process on that. And when you can talk with the author as a translator is very rich, very funny and beautiful.
So I think it's fascinating to listen to all, and I don't think we can find an audience with Czech, Britain, and French and Spanish in one place. And for some of us who don't follow literature much, it's fascinating. My question is, I think as you all talked about your childhood and how you grew, I saw that love for language is great. How do you bring this to the children in today's times? I know it may be a detailed answer, but if you can just share insights. I find if I tell my daughter, she may Google and then find the translation. So is there a way that they can still use technology and get better? Maybe I'll stop there. Thank you.
When we were preparing for this session, we decided not to bring technology into it because it is in relation to language, in relation to writing, translation, and so on. Now we really, it's a big topic. It would require, another session.
But I can give you an experience with children because I do many projects with children. In my case, I've been working with children in difficult situations, so we don't bring technology because, like, we are hands-on in a school, things like that. But a very interesting experience happened to me because I was working with the Latino children in Iowa, in a small town, people working in the farms, the kids, and taking care of them, using creative writing as a way to, develop, learn, I think the human connection is very important. And there was a very interesting experience that I had because there were the Afro-American community also in a very difficult situation, and they were like, well, we have all these kids from the Afro-American community and nobody's coming to, can you take care of them? So I end with the Latino, with the Afro-American. I have this curriculum for doing activities in Spanish, and over the same way developing activities for everyone to enjoy creativity, so using language learning, connection. So I believe kids are a wonderful space, and what they need is people close to them, doing things to them. I believe in the human connection. Technology is there, but at the end of the day, there are more people who need the human connection. So in my experience with communities who, what they really are grateful is when you go there, you work with them, you develop things with them, and they remember the experience of being with people.
Just one word, relationship. She is not in a relationship with Google. Language is relationship. It's a way to bond with others. It's not speaking language is not to be better. I mean, like to work better. It's relationship.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the speakers, to the audience. Give them a good hand of applause.
Now to present the memento to Anna Merino and Alexandra Buchler, I invite Mr. Vijay Kumar, Director of Kerala Travels, to serve on stage. So please.